In this video, I'm here with Mr. Fit2Fat2Fit himself, Drew Manning, and we're going to talk all things keto.
Let's do this.
Drew Manning, welcome to the Keto Camp podcast, brother.
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are actually here in Miami, Florida at
Yeah.
Keto Camp HQ, and we connected with Dr. Pompa, the Platinum Doctors, and you just are a wealth of information. You're an amazing human being, and we're going to talk all about your book. We're going to talk all about the cool things you're doing, your programs. I just admire you so much.
Thank you.
And before we get into that, how did you start this journey of healing, of health? And talk about your Fit2Fat2Fit movement.
Yeah, so back in 2011, I had this crazy idea, right? I was a personal trainer. And I was someone who had never been overweight a day in my life. And so here I was as a typical trainer trying to help people transform. And there was a disconnect between them and me. And I couldn't understand why they couldn't just do what I told them to do, right? I was super fit my entire life. I played football and wrestled. And for me, getting in shape was easy. All you do is you eat healthy food and you work out and then you get the results. And my clients kept struggling with that. They would, derail a little bit from their meal plans or give into some food that they weren't supposed to eat. And sometimes they wouldn't go to the gym. And I'm like, why don't you just do it? You know, it's not that hard. You just do it, right? And for them, they would kind of tell me, Drew, you don't understand what it's like. And I kind of took that to heart. I'm like, you're right. I don't understand why it's so hard for you. And so I was thinking of ideas to better relate to them. And as crazy as it sounds, the idea of getting fat on purpose, that idea entered my head and a light bulb went off. Like, what if you actually did this? Like, what if you recorded this journey of you gaining weight on purpose to better understand your clients and documented the whole thing? It would give you a better understanding, possibly, and it would be entertaining for people to watch. And so I decided to start Fit2Fat2Fit, which was 6 months of no exercise, eating a standard American diet, and then gaining a lot of weight. And then the next 6 months, walking the walk and showing people, okay, this is how you lose the weight. And that was the idea in a nutshell, and that's kind of where this whole journey began back in 2011.
That is a crazy idea. And you know what? It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So let's talk about that journey of gaining the weight, eating a standard American diet, a.k.a. a stupid American diet.
Yeah.
What were some of the struggles you had gaining all that weight?
So I'll be honest, at first it was really fun. Like, it wasn't that difficult in the beginning because, let's be honest, like, Cinnamon Toast Crunch tastes amazing. Like, it's so good. Sugary cereal, sugary soda, chips, cookies, crackers. Like, here in America, we have so many highly processed foods that are cheap, right? That's cheaper than real food. It's very convenient. And like I said, it tastes really, really good. So it was kind of easy the first month or so to eat that food, enjoy it, and pack on the pounds.
So you were like, this is the best experiment ever. I'm getting to drink this sugary cereal water or cereal milk, right? That Cinnamon Toast Crunch milk that comes at the end. Yeah, so go.
Yeah,
keep going.
It was fun. I was like a kid in a candy store. You go to the grocery store, you skip the produce section because that's where all the healthy food is, and you just go right down the cereal aisle, cookie aisle, snack aisle, dessert aisle, frozen food aisle, and like we have an abundance of these highly processed foods that are hyper palatable, and it was kind of fun. But after about a month, things started to shift very quickly. So walking up the stairs, I was out of breath. I started snoring at night, which affected my sleep, which affected my mood, which affected my energy levels, affects your hormones. And I just realized that, man, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. And so the weight piled on a lot quicker. But the surprise of all of it was how it affected me mentally and emotionally. So here's the thing. When you grow up your entire life in shape, that becomes your identity. Your body image becomes your self-image. And so for me, my identity was my body. I was Drew the fit guy. But now that I was overweight, who was I? I kind of freaked out. And so I didn't know, I didn't know who I was. I wanted to go up to strangers and tell them, like, hey guys, I'm not really overweight. This is just an experiment. Like, I don't look like this normally. I don't know who you are, but here's my before picture. Here's my website. Like, I wanted to explain it to people because I was so self-conscious and worried about what other people thought about me now that I had lost my identity. And so for me, I did freak out, and it affected me so much more on the mental and emotional side than I ever expected. And that's what my book, Fit2Fat2Fit, goes into. It dives into that personal journey of me kind of losing myself, doing Fit2Fat2Fit, but then eventually finding myself at the end and coming out of it a better man, a better human, a better trainer, more empathetic, a better understanding of what people go through when they're trying to lose weight. And my eyes were open, and that's why I have no regrets doing what I did.
Yeah, well, I acknowledge you for that because that's a tough thing to do. It sounds great. You get to eat everything you
Yeah,
want.
it sounds fun on paper, but
I used to be fat, so I went from fat to fit instead
Yeah.
of the other way. And I know what it feels like to be overweight. I was 80 pounds overweight. I was
Yeah.
depressed. My energy levels were just low all day. It was a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
And it sucked. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it feels good to eat that food in the moment. And then shortly thereafter, my energy levels are crashed and I just feel guilty.
Yeah.
So I acknowledge you for going through 6 months. So now you are, how much weight did you gain?
76 pounds.
76 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
6 months into it. And now you're like, okay, we got to get the weight off.
Yeah.
How did that go?
So that was a really huge learning lesson for me. It was really eye-opening because what happened was I went 6 months of eating this highly processed food, which my body got adapted to. And then now I went cold turkey. I went from eating 5,000 calories of Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Mountain Dew and Twinkies and macaroni and cheese and Hot Pockets to all of a sudden 2,000 calories of real whole food. And I'll be totally honest with you, my body didn't like it at first. My body, it was like getting off of a drug. My body wanted the high that it had had for 6 months, became dependent on that food, where now that I cut it out, I felt miserable. I felt like I was going through these withdrawal symptoms of I had headaches, I was moody, I was grumpy, I had lack of energy, I had brain fog, I felt starving all the time. The food did not taste as good as I remembered it, so my taste buds had adapted to that new food. And now that I was eating broccoli and kale and chicken and real food, my body liked the taste of the other food, the processed food. And so those first 2 weeks were hell. They were literally hell for me to go through, even though I was a proponent of health, saying, oh yeah, eating this way is great and I love being healthy. It sucked for about 2 weeks, but my eyes were open and it clicked for me. This is what my clients have been telling me. Like when I give them a meal plan and a workout plan, I expect them to be perfect at it. I didn't realize the emotional connection to food and the power that connection has over people. Whereas before, I'm like, look, it's not that hard. Just willpower your way through it. Put down the junk food, put down the soda. It's not that difficult. Until I lived it, even for 6 months, man, was it hard. It was so much harder than I thought it would be. I thought it was just as simple as putting it down and not eating it and not giving in. It's kind of like us, trying to tell a drug addict, like, hey, just stop doing drugs. It's not that hard, right? Because we've never experienced that. We don't know what it's like to be truly addicted. And so for me, it really built that empathy for my clients and other people that struggle with trying to live a healthy lifestyle perfectly. Even though I did push through it, I had the accountability of people watching me and the support system of people watching me. Like we were all doing it together. So that helped me push through. But I realized, man, I was so wrong in trying to just willpower other people through that process and be like, look, it's not that hard until I did it myself.
Yeah, I love the message because I hope it relates to trainers and coaches right now who are in your previous position of not being empathetic, not knowing what it feels like, and they hear this message that you're expressing and they understand, oh, maybe it's much more than just a willpower thing. It's an emotional connection. It's their identity, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. That's why when people talk about just cutting your calories and exercising more, I think it's just a distraction to what really matters. There's so many things that matter because, like you said, it is a drug. And in this scenario, sugar lights up the same part of your brain as a cocaine addiction does. So in that scenario, it's like a drug. And you're right. If you tell somebody, okay, no more cocaine or no more sugar, they're going to experience some symptoms. And that's what the keto flu is. And I think keto flu is a negative term. What it is, like you said, are detox symptoms, withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to shift our mindset and know that the body's healing. And those symptoms are not necessarily bad, but it does suck to go through it. Yeah. So at what point during this journey, because you created a great movement, you've been on Jay Leno, Dr. Oz, Tom Bilyeu, and other shows. At what point did you see this movement start to really grow?
There was different phases of it. So in the beginning, here's the thing. People don't realize back in 2011, I started from zero followers on Facebook, 0 followers on any of the social media platforms. I didn't have media connections. Like I didn't know Jay Leno or Dr. Oz or the producers. I didn't have a marketing strategy to be like, all right, I'm going to use this to get on this show and get this book deal. It all happened organically, right? Which I think, from my perspective and what other people have told me, is what made it relatable to your average person watching, right? I didn't come out of the gate with this huge marketing strategy and media connections to like, all right, this is how I'm going to do a book and create a TV show. So what happened was the first phase was my story got published on a fitness blogger's website, and then Yahoo saw that and picked it up because they saw it got good traction. They asked if they could post it on yahoo.com. So yahoo.com happened where there I was on the front page of yahoo.com, and my website crashed and I got calls from every TV show, right? So that was like the first phase of like, okay, people are really, liking this. And
Where were you in your journey when that happened? Were you gaining the weight? Or
I was gaining the weight. I was probably about like 3 months in. 3 months in. So it took me 3 months of me kind of doing my own efforts of like talking to local radio shows and local TV shows in Utah, which is where I was doing this journey, posting about it on my own Facebook, and hopefully, people spread the word, and it did spread. The word did spread. And then from there, a book deal happened, right? So I wrote my first book, Fit2Fat2Fit, which became a New York Times bestseller. And then from there, I met with a production company out of LA that said, hey, we want to create a TV show. And even though we started that journey when I was losing the weight, the TV show didn't happen until 3 years later. So we had talked about it, we pitched it to all the TV networks, no one picked it up until 3 years later. So I'm kind of speeding up this process. So there was phases of this journey becoming, popular or viral, if you will. There was different phases, and then here we are 8 years later, obviously still talking about it. Blows people's minds when they see the pictures. And so I've had 2 TV shows, or 2 seasons of my TV show, Fit2Fat2Fit. I have 2 books now. Complete Keto is my second book. And so I've kind of transitioned into the keto space about 4.5 years ago. Went on Dr. Oz again, talking about the benefits of the keto diet. So yeah, that's kind of been my journey. Obviously, there's a lot of ups and downs. We could do a whole nother episode just about the business side of this and what happened and what I learned and the mistakes I made. But here we are, 8-9 years later, still talking about Fit2Fat2Fit, which is incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. I want to ask you. I'll pause for a second just to check the camera.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask you, why keto? Why did you get into keto? That'll be the next question. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I hope you're enjoying this. Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, let's see. I think you can have Infinity. I did. Okay. Larry Diamond. Yes, that's a good point. Let's see.
Yeah, Larry has an amazing transfer. He works with the fasting method, Dr. Fung.
Oh, yeah.
So he has an amazing keto.
Chris wants us to arm wrestle. For who?
I think he's gonna win, Chris.
Okay, what's your @? Fit2Fat2Fit, the holistic motivator. Do you know that? Mine is @fit2fat2fit.
I also put a couple of stories before I went live, and I tagged him so you could follow him through there. So
yeah,
everybody check out Drew. He's phenomenal. Not only is he brilliant with health and business, but he's just a genuine human being.
Man.
Like this
Appreciate
guy,
that.
he took the time. He's here for a trip on vacation.
Yeah.
For a birthday, and he took the time to be here. Okay. So
Yeah.
This guy's a stand-up guy, so go follow him. He's one of the most authentic guys you'll ever meet.
Oh yeah, here we go. Fit2Fat2Fit, just like that. Can you guys see that?
There you go. Got it.
Fit2Fat2Fit.
Okay.
All right.
Let's keep rocking and
Back
rolling.
at it.
All right. So now you said 4.5 years ago, you transitioned into a ketogenic lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's a keyword, lifestyle. I didn't
Yes,
say diet.
there you go.
Why keto?
So obviously, I'm a self-experimenter. I like to do experimentations on my body, and I had heard about the keto diet back in the day, but it wasn't mainstream. No one was really doing it for weight loss or fat loss back in 2011, 2012. At least it wasn't in the mainstream yet. Fast forward to 2015 or so, I was listening to Tim Ferriss' podcast, and this guy named Dr. Dominic D'Agostino was on, talking about the science that had been done, the scientific research that had been done on the ketogenic lifestyle, like you said. And I was blown away at all the scientific research that had been done on this. I had no idea, right? I thought it was just another diet, like just, like paleo or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I had no idea that they used it for traumatic brain injury or what's it, oxygen?
Epilepsy?
Epilepsy. No, I knew epilepsy,
Yeah.
but it was the toxicity that Navy SEALs were experiencing.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea that his research was funded by the Department of Defense.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is amazing. I thought it was just a diet. And so I started looking into it, did my own research, and decided to give it, do an experiment on myself of keto. And back then there was no ebooks out there yet about like how to do keto.
There was no complete keto yet.
There wasn't a lot of books yet.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of did my own research and did a 60-day experiment where I just cut out all carbs, and I felt amazing. So I didn't lose any weight. I didn't lose any fat. I was already lean to begin with.
You didn't lose any muscle.
Yeah, I didn't lose any muscle either. And I went from eating 6 meals a day to eating 2 meals a day, not feeling hangry ever. And I was able to do my CrossFit workouts still. And my brain has never felt that mental clarity before. That's what I loved about keto, is the mental clarity was through the roof. And my digestion was better too, because I wasn't eating from sun up to sundown. And I wasn't losing any muscle mass. I'm like, this is a great lifestyle because I'm not a slave to food. My brain feels sharper. My digestion is better. and it felt great. So after 60 days, I was
You were
convinced.
sold.
Yeah, I was like, dude, this is awesome. And so I started living it, and then I got connected to Dr. Dom through mutual connections. A long story, but basically he was supposed to go on the Dr. Oz show. And because I haven't told this to a lot of people, but because he couldn't make it, he was on his honeymoon. He said, "Hey, Drew's a good friend of mine. He's been on your show before. Why don't you guys have him on?" So it was Dr. Axe before Dr. Josh Axe became big, and me, and we came on and talked about the benefits of the ketogenic diet. And then ever since then, keto has just blown up, right?
Yes.
It's become huge. Everyone and their dog dogs are literally doing
my
keto now.
dog's doing keto, and he does fasting too.
Yeah, my dog too. And so so now it's so popular and it's huge. So since then, I've just kind of done more research, had more people on my podcast, more experts and doctors.
What's the name of your podcast?
Fit2Fat2Fit Experience.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, everything's branded Fit2Fat2Fit pretty much, except for complete keto. So anyways, yeah, and so that's how I got into the ketogenic lifestyle.
I love it. So you experimented, which is a great thing to do. Experiment what works with you. Take what works, discard what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Move forward, right?
Yeah.
So you and I have this in my question, so it's perfect that you brought it up. You said there was a mental clarity that you didn't have before, and you went from eating 6 meals a day to 2.
Yeah.
Now that mental clarity, do you know when you're in ketosis by the way you feel without having to test? Is that something that you could feel?
Now that I've been doing it for so long,
yeah,
for sure. I definitely know when I'm in ketosis, and I know when I'm not in ketosis. Whether I'm 0.4 or 1.4, I can't really tell a huge difference. Like for me, anything above 0.5 is obviously nutritional ketosis, but for me, I know if I'm not in ketosis for sure.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing that you say, that the reason you brought that up makes me think about people who have never experienced what it's like to be in ketosis. I think it's worth at least giving it a shot to understand what we're talking about, right? A lot of people like what we're saying about the mental clarity and only wanting to eat 2 meals a day and being able to go a long period of time without food. But you have to get adapted.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give your body time to adapt. Like people want that to happen on day one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this sucks. My body doesn't feel good, and they're
the withdrawal
wondering,
symptoms that we talked about.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people cut it short. I just had a friend of mine who's like, dude, he was like a week and a half in. He wasn't there yet. And he's like, this is too hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, at least you gave it a try, but you're going to need at least 30 days, in my opinion, to really experience and feel that.
I love it. Actually, in my Keto Camp Academy, I have a 28-day keto jumpstart. It takes for me, it takes 28 days to teach the body how to have this metabolic flexibility so they don't feel like crap anymore, because you could feel worse before you feel better.
Exactly.
Especially if you've been a sugar burner for a long time.
Yeah.
But there's not one way to do keto.
Yep.
There's thousands and thousands. If we go on Dr. Google right now on this computer and put what is the keto diet, we'll get 183 million results, dude.
Really?
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you teach it. What is clean keto according to you? What you talk about in the book. Talk about clean keto, and then let's talk about dirty keto.
Yeah. So first of all, my keto journey has evolved or transitioned. If you go back and look at when I first did keto, there wasn't a lot of information out there. So I was like, all right, just cut out carbs, eat everything else that's high in fat and low in carbs. And it was, I wouldn't say more of a dirty keto approach, but it was an uneducated form of keto. And now it's evolved into where I feel like complete keto is the most bang for your buck out there, the cleanest way to do keto, in my opinion. So what I've discovered is my body, there's different levels of keto too. Like when I first did it, going from what I was eating before to that, like that was an amazing step. But since then, there's been other amazing steps to where I've like, okay, this worked for a while, but now that I'm 3-4 years in, do I still eat the same way that I did back then? No, I'm always changing, evolving, upgrading. And so my perception of clean keto is a whole food approach, right? The issue that we have, and this goes for every popular diet out there, is once a diet becomes popularized, like keto or vegan or paleo, is we start coming up with these convenience products. Because in America, we like convenience products. So, okay, how can we make keto more convenient? Well, we're going to need keto pizza. We're going to need keto bread. We're going to need keto cupcakes, keto cookies, keto desserts. And we start creating these other categories of, they fit into that lifestyle. But the problem is people gravitate towards that, the easy stuff, even though it's not the cleanest ingredients and the healthiest ingredients. But yeah, it's technically keto. You could stay in ketosis eating these foods, but we never change our behavior. And that's where people are like, I'm gaining weight, I don't understand, or I'm still inflamed and I'm doing keto. And like you said, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So you got to experiment. You got to find what works best for you. And yes, is there a time and place for these keto convenience treats, for sure. Yeah, I'm not saying I never consume those. I definitely do. But it's just being aware of when to plug those into my diet. And then the dirty keto, that's something that, obviously has evolved and it's become popularized as well, because let's face it, we like convenience, right? That's why we have Uber Eats on our phone, or we have fast food right by us. So the problems don't fall into that trap of only eating these highly processed meats, these highly processed cheeses and dairy, and these keto treats. And that's the mistakes that people make on keto, is they just go dirty keto. And yes, you can lose weight, you can stay in ketosis eating those foods. I've seen a ton of people do it, but does that equate to better health? Probably not over the long term, for most people. And so that's kind of where we try and get people from A to Z. We're like, okay, you're going to do keto, go all the way over here and be a purist and never touch that food. For some people that works. For most people, it's like, oh, okay, let's go from A to B, B to C, C to D, and then like they start consuming your content, my content, other people's content, these books, these podcasts, and they start learning, okay, maybe I should cut out like these keto treats, or maybe I should cut out dairy for 30 days and see how my body responds. So that's what my book, Complete Keto, does, is it's a dairy-free, nut-free 30-day approach to keto, just because those are two of the foods that I find people overconsume. And, just go to Costco, get a thing of salted cashews and try and eat one handful.
Yeah, it's impossible.
They're so good. And you just keep eating them. They're like, oh, it's keto, it's low in carbs. But really, you're having 4 or 5 handfuls a day, and you're not losing weight, or you're eating 3 cheese sticks, per day. And you're like, I don't understand. I'm in ketosis, but I'm not losing weight.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you bring this up, because there's no cookie cutter approach to keto.
Yeah.
And there's so much information out there, because if somebody, like I mentioned, goes on Dr. Google and they type in, how do I follow a keto diet?
Yeah.
They're going to get a leading authority who tells you to do it this way.
Yeah.
And they're going to get a leading authority that tells you to do it the complete opposite way. And then it leaves the person paralyzed.
Yeah.
So something I've learned from my experience, not just with health, but studying successful entrepreneurs, people that I admire, I used to be all over the place. I used to study 20, 30, 40 people, read different books, and I was just confused.
Yeah.
So my advice to people is pick some people that you like their personality.
Yeah.
They have the track record. They're getting great results, and you follow them. You experiment with them, and if it works, you continue doing it. Because if you follow this person, that woman, it's just going to leave you confused. So I love how you teach that.
Yeah.
It's straightforward. It's very easy to understand, by the way. This book right here, it's exactly what the title says, Complete Keto.
Complete.
So, speaking of ingredients and these keto being popular, we go to Whole Foods, we go to the gas station, you'll see bars that say keto on it.
Yeah.
Just like gluten-free, just like organic. It doesn't mean it's healthy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this happens to you all the time. Companies reach out to you and say, hey, I want you to try our product in exchange for promoting it.
Yeah.
Happens to me all the time too. And I had a company recently, I'm not going to name who they were, but they had this keto granola.
Yeah.
And they sent it to me. And then I reviewed the ingredients, because I didn't look at the gluten-free, I didn't look at the organic.
Yeah.
I looked at the ingredients, and it said canola, and I'm and I wrote them back. I'm like, do you know you have canola in your product? It creates inflammation around your cells, and I wouldn't consume that or teach that. And they're like, oh, thank you for consideration. So it's having that awareness that you talk about, that I talk about, and we're not going to be perfect. Sometimes I'll consume canola and I don't know it, but if you understand and look at the ingredients, you won't be fooled by marketing.
Exactly, and that's really smart. And see, that's for everyone listening out there. Like, you've done the research, and that's where you're at. And for other people, they'll listen to that and be like, oh, that's too confusing. It's too hard for me to look at that. Like, okay, maybe you're not there yet, but you listening to this, like, maybe one day it'll hit you where you're like, okay, I'm going to be more aware. Like 2020, I'm going to upgrade. I'm going to elevate myself to become more aware and, be more responsible for the things I'm putting in my body. You know what I'm saying? And so, yes, I get that all the time with companies sending me stuff. And I tell people this all the time. You could drink Diet Coke and chug vegetable oil all day and probably stay in ketosis. Yeah, for sure. And you might even lose weight. Is that healthier for you? Probably not. Like, that's like really unhealthy, right? But I think one of the myths that people that I see in the keto space is just because you're in ketosis doesn't mean you're going to lose weight and doesn't mean you're becoming healthier. I think people mistake, and they'll prick their finger and say, oh, I'm at 1.0, but I'm not losing weight and I'm still inflamed. Mm-hmm. There's just that number on your blood ketone meter doesn't equate to better health. And people do that with the scale too, thinking, oh, I'm losing weight, therefore I'm becoming healthier. Not necessarily. You could be losing muscle mass and losing weight on the scale, and that looks great, but that doesn't equate to better health. So that's one of the mistakes, and one of the myths that I see people, in the keto space that people people tend to make.
Yeah, I see it too. Let's take a quick break.
Okay. All right.
This is awesome. I hope you guys are enjoying this.
We got Larry Diamond. Larry Diamond's like, he's going ham on. He was on if quality fatty coffee can be strategic to become fat adapted, burn fat, overall lower calorie days. We got some technical questions people are asking. We'll get to those.
I'll make sure I go back and I read them and I'll respond.
Okay.
I love it, Larry. Good job, brother. Okay. Ready to keep rocking on?
Yes.
We have about 20 minutes left.
Okay.
You good with that?
I'm good.
Okay, in your book, Complete Keto, which is right here, I'm not going to drop it like I did before, you have some tips on how to follow keto without a gallbladder. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, what I found with the gallbladder thing, and this isn't the majority of people, but people without a gallbladder have a tough time digesting or assimilating the fats from a high-fat, ketogenic diet. And so what I found is an ox bile liver enzyme that people can buy on Amazon. I'm not associated with any brand out there, but it's done miracles for people that struggle with a keto diet that don't have a gallbladder. And that's something I found, anecdotally works for most people out there. And that's kind of one of the things that, like you said, we've talked about this whole podcast is there's totally different ways to do keto. And so that's one of the things that I've found that helps people without a gallbladder, because there's, quite a few people out there that don't have one. They think, well, I can't do keto.
Yeah. It's the #1 surgery in the U.S.
Really?
The gallbladder removal. Yeah.
Wow, dude, I didn't know that.
So I get all the time, I get asked, I don't have a gallbladder. So that's a great tip. I say the same thing. Get ox bile, spread your fats out. Don't eat too much in one sitting. And it can be done. You just got to have some considerations there. So I love that. Okay, next question. How important are electrolytes, especially as you transition from being a sugar burner to a fat burner? Actually, before we even get to that, what's the difference between burning sugar and burning fat? And then how important is it to include electrolytes as you make that transition?
Yeah, so most of us who grew up here in America are probably most likely sugar burners, because we have cereal for breakfast and bread for lunch and pasta for dinner, and we have bread with every single meal. So we're very efficient at burning glucose as an energy source, right? When you shift over to a high-fat diet and you cut out the carbohydrates, your body's going to retain less water. And when you retain less water, you're also missing out on essential minerals, right? So sodium, potassium, magnesium mostly. And so what happens is when people transition from eating a high carb diet, a standard American diet, to eating a high fat diet, a ketogenic diet, is their body will retain less water, which some people like because they're losing some weight in the beginning.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
Awesome. But if you don't replenish those essential minerals, what's going to happen is you're going to experience what you mentioned, the keto flu, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's most likely due to an imbalance of electrolytes. So, and when I say the word electrolytes, and this is something that I've been working at changing, people think Gatorade.
Oh, gosh,
okay, so I need to drink Gatorade.
Gatorade Zero, right?
Yeah, Gatorade Zero.
That's keto.
Because we don't know, okay, how else do I get my electrolytes?
Yeah.
But anyways, so sodium, potassium, magnesium I wouldn't say are optional. They're mandatory. Like hitting those numbers, and it's different for each person, right? But generally what I tell people is about 5 to 7 grams of sodium per day, 300 to 500 milligrams of magnesium, and about 1,500 to 3,500 milligrams of potassium. Try and getting those in every single day so that you feel optimal on the ketogenic diet, and that's going to get rid of any of those keto flu symptoms, especially. And you got to be drinking a lot of water too, not just taking the electrolytes, but you got to be drinking a lot more water and supplementing with those electrolytes, especially during those first 2 weeks as your body transitions. And that's why people feel awful or feel the brain fog or those keto flu-like symptoms, which can be, cramping in the muscles and lower energy and brain fog, especially during those first couple weeks. Yeah,
great tips right there. So if you're thinking about doing keto, because we have the New Year coming up and everybody has their New Year's resolutions, and keto might be on the list for so many people, that's an important thing you just said, electrolytes. And like you said, potassium, magnesium, sodium, and it doesn't have to come from supplements, although that will help, from green leafy vegetables, right? From sea salt. I mean, I have my little salt right there that I put in my water all day. I put it in my coffee, because coffee you even lose more electrolytes. So that's a great tip right there. Okay. We talked about the nuts and bolts of keto. And if they want to learn more, definitely get the book. You have diet, you have meal plans in there, you have testimonials, it's a great book. You also have something in there that I think is the most important thing in your book, and that's the habit of practicing gratitude. Why did you include that in your keto book?
Because over the past, since I wrote my first book, Fit2Fat2Fit, back in 2012, I've learned so many life lessons throughout the years. And this book was just launched earlier this year, 2019. And so what it is in complete keto is I've taken all the lessons I've learned on the mental and emotional side and personal development side, where, I've gone through my own personal journey, transitioning out of the religion I grew up in, getting a divorce, kind of hitting rock bottom and building myself back up to where I am today, to where I own my story. I embrace vulnerability as a strength. And my eyes have been open in a sense. Anytime you hit rock bottom and you come out of that, you are a better version of yourself. And so I've taken all those lessons that I've learned from Fit2Fat2Fit and my own personal journey and added them to a ketogenic approach. And that's what I think, like you said, separates complete keto from every other book, because the mental and emotional side is what 80% of people out there are struggling with. Mm-hmm. It's not so much the macros or the workouts or the supplements. Like, that's a part of it for sure. But people overlook the importance of the mental and emotional challenges that need to be overcome to make whatever diet you're doing a lifestyle change. So instead of doing the keto diet, you're doing a keto lifestyle, but it takes you overcoming those emotional challenges or sometimes trauma that you've had since childhood that you haven't let go of or overcome. That's what's holding most people back out there, right? Most people in this industry, you see it online, people fighting back and forth about which diet's better, which exercise is better, and 80% of America out there is struggling because not so much that, not lack of knowledge. Yes, there's a physical component to it, but the mental and emotional side, I think that's where most people struggle with. So gratitude specifically is one of the daily lessons or daily tasks that I ask people to do on top of meal plans and workouts and supplements. You'll see in there, day one, yes, the recipes are in there, the meal plans are in there, what to eat, your workouts in there. But on top of that, you have other homework you have to do, and that is writing down a gratitude list, daily meditation, and positive affirmations. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if you can do those three things on top of those other things, what happens is you become more fulfilled with where you're at instead of waiting till one day, I'll be happy. One day when I get this body, one day when I lose the weight, one day when I have this much money, one day when I have this type of job or this type of life, then I'll be happy. And that's what most people out there struggle with, is they want to be happy. They want these things, thinking these outside things are going to bring them happiness, when in reality, they can choose to be happy now, even though their life is imperfect and even though their body isn't the way they want it to be. You can be happy now. And that's what a gratitude list helps you do. It changes your perception of your situation so that you're looking at your situation, you're looking for things to be grateful for in the now rather than one day. And I promise you, if you sit there and write 3 things every single day that you're grateful for, and your brain looks for things to be grateful for, then throughout the day, you start to look at your situations in your life differently, rather than looking at, oh, woe is me, my life sucks, things aren't perfect, I hate my body, I hate my job, I hate this. You're looking at things like, I'm grateful for this. Like, I'm grateful for, the struggle. I'm grateful for this journey that I'm on. I'm grateful for all the trials and tribulations I've been through, because this is what they've taught me. And if you could be grateful for the things, the things you have in your life now, then you'll continue to be grateful and fulfilled even when you do get there. Because what happens is most people think, oh, once I have money, then I'll be happy. Once I have this body, then I'll be happy. But what happens is if they're not grateful now, even when they get there, they're still miserable.
Yeah. That's the most important part of this interview, what you just shared, the last, 2-3 minutes. That is the most important piece that I see is missing with happiness, with health, because there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. Yeah. And it's an inside job. And gratitude has changed my life, Drew.
Yeah.
I have notebooks like this.
Yeah.
Probably 30 or 40 of them just filled with gratitude and goals. Every single morning,
awesome,
every single night. I have not missed a morning or night. My girlfriend does it too. I keep it because one day I'm going to have a big stack and I'm going to take a photo with that stack. But that's not why I do it. I do it because when I focus and I think about things that I appreciate or I want to have as if they already are happening, I get more of that. I'm a big believer that whatever we think about, we bring about. Yeah. And 80% plus, I think it's 95% plus, are thinking about negative things or thinking about what's not working. And what do they get? More of what's not working. So what you just shared about gratitude, if you could get into the habit of doing gratitude, meditation, being present, starting your morning like that, and then going to bed like that, it's going to make all the difference. So exactly. I love that you shared that, dude. It's the most important part of this interview.
Exactly. And that's why I included it in my book, and that's why it's called Complete Keto, because instead of it being just about a physical transformation, it is about a complete transformation. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that's where people will become more fulfilled in this life. The problem with our industry, the fitness industry, is people's perception is they think they're only successful if they get the physical results. Like, I'm only successful if I do keto and I lose weight and I get this body, and if I don't, therefore I'm a failure. And what happens is people base their success on the results only rather than, not to quote Miley Cyrus, but I'm going to quote her, it's all about the climb. It really is. Like, it's not about getting to the top. It's about what you learn. If I could get people to fall in love with the process or fall in love with the climb, it won't matter the results. Because you'll love who you are where you're at now while you continue on the journey, and you'll just keep moving forward instead of what happens in January. People go hard for 2 or 3 months, and then they get derailed because they're not seeing the results as quickly as they want to, and they're like, this isn't worth it. I'm putting in all this effort, and I'm seeing minimal results. It's easier just to go back to my old ways, and people get stuck in that same cycle every single year because their perception is that I'm only successful if I get the results. Don't make it about the results in 2020. Make it about falling in love with the process. If you can fall in love with the process, the results will take care of themselves over time. But you'll be fulfilled, you'll be happy, you'll be grateful for where you are now on this journey, and that's where we'll start to see real transformation, complete transformation.
Yes, I love it. Amen, brother. It's so true. I mean, I set big goals, and it's not even about hitting those goals. It's about who I have to become, the connections I have to make, the people I have to help on my way to accomplishing those goals. So if you could have that mindset, then every step along the way brings happiness because like we said, it's an inside job. So I have my rapid fire questions. Let me just check the camera one more time.
Okay, let's do it. Rapid fire. Epic duo right there, changing the game. Thank you.
He's in the UK.
Chris Hubner, #1 entry on my list. Thankful for these videos. Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. We appreciate you guys spending part of your day with us. We really do. Thank you. Okay, I have rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
Yes, that's
good to go.
Actually, let me put the headset on. Okay, Drew, we're almost winding down to our interview. Actually, before we get to this, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful to be in Miami, Florida, even though the weather isn't perfect. I'm grateful for the rain and the clouds because our Earth needs that sometimes too. We can't just always have sun. You can't have rainbow without a little rain.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
I'm grateful for this time of year. Christmas, December is like a really special time for me. And I'm grateful to live in a time where we have technology where you and I can stand here in front of each other talking into this little tiny microphone thing that leads into this, which is then broadcast out there to the world.
So
like
cool.
We live in an amazing time.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm grateful for.
I love it. Thank you. Okay, we're going to do rapid fire. So I want you to answer these as quick as possible. Try not to think about it too much. And we'll go right down the list. I have about 7 rapid fire questions here. All right. #1. What's your favorite keto food?
Shoot, that's a hard one. Keto coffee. I love keto coffee.
How do you make it?
I have my own brand of supplements called Complete Wellness. I do MCT oil powder, and if I need a little bit extra calories, I'll do my salted caramel keto meal replacement with collagen and MCT oil powder and coconut oil powder. It tastes delicious.
And what beans do you use?
Right now, I'm using this company called Purity Coffee.
Yeah.
You know those guys?
Yeah.
Dude, game changer.
They're the best.
Like I stopped using other coffee brands.
Totally.
And just Purity.
Yep.
So, yep.
I love it. Yeah, I did an Instagram takeover for them.
You did?
They're amazing. Yeah. Shout out to Purity. Good job.
Yes.
Okay. This is supposed to be quick, Drew.
I know. Sorry. There's so many foods like popping up.
What's your favorite non-keto food?
Pizza. I love pizza.
Pizza's
good.
What kind of
pizza? I'm not too picky, but I like the one with either the carnivore, like all the meat, or what brand you mean?
No, just what type. Like you said, carnivore, all the meat. So sorry, vegans. All right.
Yeah.
What is the first thing you think of in the morning?
Other than I have to pee?
Yeah, other than that.
I try and think of where I'm at, like in the world, and where I'm at emotionally. Like that's the first thing that pops up. Like, am I happy? Is life going good? That's weird that I've never been asked that question before, but that's actually the first thing I think of is like, where am I? Am I happy in my life? Am I happy with where my life is at right now?
Mm-hmm. So you're gaining your awareness at that moment. I love it.
That's interesting.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever got?
People go where they're invited, but they stay where they're appreciated. And so when it comes to relationships, like people go places if they're invited there, but if they're going to stay there, they have to feel appreciated.
Yeah.
So that kind of carries over into all my relationships. Like if I make people feel appreciated, they'll want to stay with me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And you do. You have that. That's a gift of yours.
Thank you.
What's the worst piece of advice you ever got?
I've never gotten bad advice. Not that I can think of. Shoot. I don't know. eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die.
Okay.
I don't know. I just made that one up. That's like a Bible quote, I think.
Oh, is it?
But yeah, I'm trying to think.
Or I
of
can
one.
flip it around. What's bad advice you see? What's the most common bad advice you see out there? Maybe when it comes to health or whatever. What's the common theme you see that's not helping people? It's hurting them instead.
I think the thing that I see is people struggle with self-worth, and this is something I struggled with my whole life. And so I feel like that's not advice people give, but it's something that we adopt from a very young age. From like the time someone tells us we're ugly, we're fat, we're stupid, we're dumb, we start to believe that lie, and then that changes our whole view on our life from that age on. And I think that's why most people suffer or struggle in this life, because we start to believe those lies as we become more aware as a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. And I think that's why there's so much suffering in this world, is because we buy into those lies.
Yeah. We let somebody determine our self-worth, somebody else.
And as a young age, we don't know how to convince ourselves or talk ourselves out of that. We believe what people tell us, whether we're, like, oh, you're amazing, you're great. Oh, yeah, I am. Or you're dumb, you're stupid. We believe that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful. I interviewed yesterday Ashley DeLillo. We saw it speak in Newport.
Oh, cool.
She talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
The first 7 years of your life, it's your programming.
I know, man.
So we got to kind of unlearn and then relearn, like you talked about. Okay, rapid fire. What are we doing here?
Sorry, going deep.
Favorite TV show growing up?
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that one too. Okay, last rapid fire question is, if you had one superpower, what would that superpower be?
That's going to sound stupid, but the ability to fly, I guess. Yeah, nothing special. Superman, or just Superman.
Anything Superman.
Just give me Superman, and that would be the best.
So your
superpower.
kryptonite would be like carbohydrates and sugar?
It'd be
keto guy.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch. That would be my kryptonite.
Okay, awesome. Drew, dude, this was an awesome interview,
thank you,
dude.
Appreciate
I want to acknowledge you for the work that you're doing. Ever since I met you day one, you've been such a humble human being, authentic. Like you said, you make me feel welcome. I see that with everybody you're around. You have this amazing book that I highly recommend you go get. We'll put links for everything we talked about, all of his work in the podcast notes and the YouTube notes. But I acknowledge you because you show up in this world. You're authentic. You educate. You do amazing work, and it's not just today in this conversation, but every single day I see your actions, brother, and I really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you for making the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Always a pleasure, and thank you guys for tuning in and listening, and my hope is that, you and me, this podcast that we did will help someone out there.
Yeah, appreciate you,
All right, brother.
Thank you, man.
Yep. Okay, so no pressure.
No pressure.
You as the interviewer,
Yeah.
because he's going to be interviewing me. Oh. And there goes my book.
Yeah, at least it didn't happen during the interview.
He's already throwing my book around. Can you reach it?
I got it. It's
So,
still in good condition.
It's still in good condition. We're still good to go. But yeah, expect your mind to be blown.
We'll talk about that. Okay, let's rock and roll.
Maybe.
I know what to do.
Okay.
I'm gonna do this. So we're gonna cover up
Larry
Elon
Diamond,
Musk.
Larry Diamond, what's up?
Elon Musk and